What's good, everyone, and welcome in to another edition of the World Class Hoops podcast here for Sunday, May 23rd, 2021. I'm your host, Chris Rouse, coming to you from my hometown of Chicago, Illinois. Getting ready to just give you my thoughts on day one of the NBA playoffs. Also, give you my thoughts on some of the preview on day two of today's NBA playoff game starting in about 2 or 3 hours with the Wizards taking on the Philadelphia 76ers, the Los Angeles Lakers at the Phoenix Suns. That'll be followed by the Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks, and then later on in the day, the Memphis Grizzlies and the Utah Jazz. But once again, welcome in. You can follow the World Class Hoops Podcast on Twitter at WCHP Media, here on Facebook at World Class Hoops Podcast. And also you can follow me on social media at KingRouse21, KINGROUSE21, on Twitter and Instagram. Also catch some of my other shows, such as Students of the Game. You can catch that on Facebook at Students of the Game Chicago, Twitter at SOTG Chicago, and The Art of the Science, available on Twitter at ARTOFSCI Boxing, Facebook at The Art of the Science, and also Joe with Joe, which is available on Facebook via Students of the Game as well. All shows available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor, and YouTube. And also you can catch The Art of the Science on SoundCloud. So check it out, man. We got plenty of content. You know, Students of the Game for if you're into the hot topics in sports, Art of the Science if you're into boxing, and then obviously the World Class Hoops Podcast for basketball only. And then Joe with Joe is kind of like a mix of all of that put together. I mean, much like Students of the Game is, but basically we got content is what I'm saying. So so check some of it out. Today, like I said, Sunday, May the 23rd. Yesterday was Saturday. That kicked off the first round of the 2021 NBA playoffs. Very eventful day, man. I mean, to say the least. It started out in Milwaukee with the Bucks beating the Milwaukee Bucks beating the Miami Heat 109-107 in overtime, thanks to a game winner by two-time All-Star Chris Middleton. He wasn't an All-Star this year. I thought he should have got a look, but he wasn't an All-Star this year. But he came up big for Milwaukee as they were able to beat the Miami Heat 109-107. Pretty much what I expected out of a Milwaukee-Miami game, man. Very, very eventful. A lot of three-point shooting from Miami. They got one of the most elite three-point shooters in the league in Duncan Robinson. Jimmy Butler, the steals leader in the league. He and Bam Adebayo are arguably both top 10 defenders in the league. So kind of what I expected for the Miami defense to give Milwaukee some troubles. And some of those troubles were, for example, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the former two-time MVP, going 0 for 14 from outside the arc. That was one of the stats I saw. He went 0 for 14 on shots from outside the restricted area. I'm sorry. So basically everything Giannis got was from within the paint or at the free throw line in the game yesterday against Miami. And I thought going into the series, when I did the preview for that series yesterday, I thought he would be the X factor. Can he hit outside shots, which he did not do yesterday? He went 0 for 3 from three-point land. And could he create for other players on Milwaukee, which I thought he did. However, Milwaukee's three-point shooting, it just wasn't there. They shot 5 for 31 from three-point land in the game yesterday. And when you're playing against Miami, a team that has Tyler Hero, they have a Duncan Robinson, who like I said earlier, is one of the most elite three-point shooters. That's one of the more elite three-point shooting duos in the league, actually. When you go up against them, you have to be able to knock down some shots. And from Milwaukee, only to hit 5, you kind of see why that game had to come down to a Chris Middleton game winner. And so it looks like, for Milwaukee, if I'm Milwaukee, I will feel a little encouraged. I know this is going to sound strange to say, but I would feel a little bit more encouraged because, like I said, you won by 2 in overtime, but at the same time, you know exactly what the problem was. You just weren't hitting your outside shots. So I look for Milwaukee if they can knock down the outside shots in game 2, I think we could see a much different outcome. We could probably see them win that one in regulation, probably going away. I picked Milwaukee to win that series in 5. Not because I think they're that much better than Miami, just because I think Miami's going to wear down, and I think especially starting off the series with an overtime game after having that long trek through the playoffs into the bubble, and then throughout the regular season having guys out and having different players miss time due to COVID, and then making trades to try to change their roster up. I think that's just going to eventually take a toll on Miami, and I can see Milwaukee, if they can get game 2, I think they could really have a chance at pulling away when the series shifts to Miami. However, the internet joke, hey, when you go to Miami, teams tend to struggle because it's Miami. So if Milwaukee can avoid that, I think you could see them ended up walking out of that series in 5 games. The second game of the playoffs, man, the Clippers and the Mavericks, and here so soon, man. I picked the Clippers to win the West, but I also said when I did the preview yesterday that I think the Mavericks can take this series to 7, and Dallas proved me right yesterday with Game 1, as they were able to get the Game 1 win on the road. And what I noticed about Dallas in the starting lineup that is really going to be something that the Clippers have to adjust to is how do they get offense and how do they defend against that positional size that Dallas brings onto the court? Because Dallas starts a starting lineup of Luka Doncic, Tim Hardaway Jr., Porzingis, Maxi Kleber, and Dorian Finney-Smith. The smallest guy on the floor is 6'5", and that's Tim Hardaway Jr. And when you're talking about the Clippers, not to discount Patrick Beverley because we've seen him have success defending against LeBron James, but also for the Clippers without Lou Williams, who I said that with that trade to get Rondo, I wish they kind of would have kept Lou Williams because they really could use his speed and his ability to score. Even though Rondo did have a pretty good game yesterday, he had 11 points. I just think when you're talking about positional size, the Clippers are going to have to be able to get baskets against some very good defenders that have extreme length on the perimeter. We're talking about Josh Richardson. You're talking about Dorian Finney-Smith. And Reggie Jackson, he can have his struggles. He had a decent game yesterday. But for the Clippers, when they take the air out of the ball, they too have to be able to knock down the outside shot. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. They were unable to hit their threes that well. I think they shot 26%. I know they shot in the 20s from three-point land in the game yesterday. And then, of course, Paul George, man, the pressure is on. The pressure is on Paul George in these playoffs. And I've been defending Paul George all season. Hey, man, when he has a good game, you got to point that out too. But, hey, he had an off game yesterday. He shot 8 of 18 from the field. I mean, if I'm gonna give him, if I'm gonna praise him, I gotta criticize him. And that was a rough performance from Paul George. Kawhi Leonard, as usual, having a big playoff game. By the way, shout out Kawhi Leonard, man. The steal and the dunk on Maxi Kleber so far my play of the playoffs, man. You could put Chris Middleton's game winner down there, probably number 2 behind Kawhi's steal on one end and then dunking on Maxi Kleber on the other end. So shout out to Kawhi Leonard, man, for that play. And but yeah, I just think the Clippers, man, they got to hit the outside shots. It's going to come down to them in game 2 adjustments. It's going to come down to Paul George. Can he have a much more efficient game from the field and also their outside shooting? Like I said, shooting 27% against a Dallas team that just has positional size all around the board, and then they can go to the bench and also use some speed as well. They brought Jalen Brunson and Josh Richardson off the bench actually in the game yesterday. So this is a Dallas team that is really stacked, and they've been getting really good performances out of people all throughout that lineup. Even guys that didn't play yesterday, like Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr., who did play, but just saying throughout that lineup, they've been able to get good performances throughout the entire lineup all season long. Elsewhere in the playoffs, the Brooklyn Nets against the Boston Celtics. I thought Boston in the game yesterday, early on, had a really good game plan. They came out, they kind of took the air out the ball, made it so Brooklyn couldn't, snatch the ball out the basket, get up the court and get easy buckets on the other end. So they did a good job of slowing the Nets down. But in the second half, Brooklyn kind of turned it on, man. Joe Harris he actually got him going in that first half with some of his outside shooting. And then after that, it was kind of like an avalanche for Brooklyn. After that, it was like Kyrie got going with his moves, then James Harden started setting players up. Then Kevin Durant had the steal and breakaway dunk near the end of the game, and that kind of sealed it. But for Boston in game 2, I think Jason Tatum. And Jason Tatum, to me, he's one of my favorite players to watch because I think he's right there as one of the prototype players of positionless basketball. One of the guys that can do everything great. One of those guys that can do everything. But my issue with Jason Tatum, he sometimes can be very streaky. And the issue with Jason Tatum sometimes is if he has a rough first quarter, he kind of ends up having a rough game. It's kind of hard for him to get out of any slumps. So for Jason Tatum, he's got to get off to a really good start. Or sometimes it's actually the opposite. He'll have a really good start, and in the second half he'll miss 2 or 3, and then it's rough. All yesterday I thought he was a little rough throughout the game. So I think Jason Tatum, if he can get off to a pretty fast start in game 2, I think Boston will have a much better chance. One of the reasons why earlier in the year I picked Milwaukee, despite all the moves Brooklyn made, was something that Boston displayed yesterday. They showed that if you can slow the game down against Brooklyn, you actually can take them out of a rhythm, and that's something that I think Milwaukee, who I think they're going to end up playing in the second round, I think it is going to end up being Brooklyn and Milwaukee. But one of Brooklyn's issues is in the half-court offense. If you slow them down and make them defend, they kind of have a problem if you can space the floor out. And I thought Boston did a good job of that in the first half with Marcus Smart. And I was actually kind of shocked we didn't see more of Carson Edwards and Peyton Pritchard, just to get him some more speed and some scoring on the floor in game one yesterday. But I really think that Boston, like I said, if Jason Tatum can get off to a hot start and if they can play sort of that half-court offense they played in the first half yesterday, they might have a better chance of winning game two. Probably, like I said, I got Brooklyn in 5. I think Boston will probably win at home, though, probably just to avoid the sweep. But I think they'll have a better chance if Jason Tatum, he gets off to a faster start and they can get him more in rhythm while they have that half-court offense going and can slow the pace down. And for Denver and Portland, last night the Portland Trailblazers won game one to take on the road to take a 1-0 lead. Kind of reminded me of the playoff series they had a few years ago where they had the epic 4 overtime game where C.J. McCollum had a huge performance. I just really thought in yesterday's game, Carmelo Anthony kind of turned back the clock for Portland. He got off to a really good start, was really knocking down the shots. Denver had a shot in the game, but the problem with them, for me, in the long run, is just it seemed like at the end of game one last night, kind of looked like they kind of just conceded that they gave that one away. It was like Portland got up by like 5. They were up 5 with like 5 minutes left or something like that. And it just kind of looked like Denver was like, all right, that's all right. They can have this one. We'll come back in game two. And I really thought like, wow, I think Denver really could still win this ball game. But it just seemed like they couldn't get the shots to fall, and they kind of conceded to the idea of, okay, we'll give them this game one, and then we'll come back and win game two. And I think that's really if I'm not saying that is the mindset, but that's just the feel. That's just what I thought I saw on the court from the body language of Denver. And it seemed like Portland, they said, all right, if you're gonna give it to us, we'll take it. And Damian Lillard just started hitting his shots, and he pretty much went Dame. It was Dame time, man. And Portland ended up with a game one win. For game two, adjustments for Denver. I actually expect Denver to win games. I got Denver winning this series in 6. I actually expect Denver to win game two. I think one of the problems for Denver is, well, obviously they're missing Jamal Murray. But Monte Morris, he had a pretty good game for them against Enes Kanter yesterday. He was getting a lot of good buckets. But for them, I think they need more from Michael Porter Jr. playing within the rhythm of the offense. I thought he did a really good job playing within the arc yesterday. I mean, he still had 21 points. But he shot 1 for 10 from three-point land. And that was something that I said coming into this series I thought was going to be an issue for Denver. Can Michael Porter Jr., can he play within the rhythm of that Denver offense? And yesterday when he was doing that, Denver was having success. When he was getting his shots inside the arc, he was creating for himself off the dribble in the paint, and also hitting his turnaround jump shot. But his outside shot just wasn't falling, and I thought that was hurting Denver in the game yesterday. So I think for Denver in game two, I expect them to come out blazing, pretty much trying to make sure they win game two at home, because you don't want to go to Portland down 0-2. So I expect to see more out of Jokic, which is like, how can you even say that after the game he had? He had 34 points, and I think he was 16 rebounds yesterday. Expect more out of Monte Morris. I thought they gave him a good production off the bench. And also, I expect to see more out of Aaron Gordon. I thought he was a little quiet up until maybe the end of game one. So I look for Denver in game two kind of. It looked like they weren't really ready for game one to start almost in a weird way, which is crazy because they had the lead early on. It seemed like they weren't really ready for game one to start so soon almost. I don't know. It's just really weird. I can't describe it, but I expect Denver in game two to come out blazing and try to make sure they don't go to Portland down 2-0. All right, today the playoffs begin they begin for the other 4 matchups in the first round of the playoffs. You got the Washington Wizards, the 8th seed, at the Philadelphia 76ers. The Lakers will go to the Suns in the Western Conference in the 2-7 matchup. And then in the Eastern Conference 4-5, you got the Knicks and the Hawks. And then in the Western Conference 1-8, you got Memphis and Utah. I guess I'm giving my game one picks because, I predicted the series yesterday. I said I wanted to pick the Wizards so bad in this series, but I just think Philly just with their defense, they'll find a way. And then also it depends on their three-point shooting. I think Philadelphia, their three-point shooting is the X factor for me in this series because sometimes, with Danny Green, he's had his moments in the past where he struggled in the playoffs, but he's also had his moments where he's really good. Also, they have Furkan Korkmaz, they have Seth Curry, so I think Philadelphia is really stacked enough from the three-point arc to at least win this series against Washington. But I think Washington will give them some problems just because they have scorers like Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, Davis Bertans with his outside shooting, Rui Hachimura. So I really think that Philadelphia might be in for a series with Washington, but I got Philadelphia winning game one. I think it's going to come down to the three-point shooting. in that matchup for today. The Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers. I picked Phoenix to win this series in 7, and not because I don't think the Lakers are good. Obviously, I mean they're the defending champs, and it's hard to pick against LeBron. But I also just really think Chris Paul, man. I think Chris Paul. This is one of those years, man, where it's like you've had an amazing season, and he's got a chance, man, to get to the. If there was ever a chance to get back to the finals, man, or to get to the finals and get back to where he was in Houston when they got to the conference finals. I think he's got a good chance this year with Denver being without Jamal Murray. Portland, they have Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, and Carmelo Anthony. But I think Phoenix all around is a really well built roster with Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, all the players around him with Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson. I really think this is a Phoenix team that is equipped to make a Western Conference Finals run, especially when you look at what they ended up with on their side of the bracket. And then you're talking about the Lakers, who are going to be a bit worn down, man. They've had players out with injuries all season long, in which case you could say maybe their legs are rested, but still they also have had players out with leg injury, like LeBron's been out with an ankle injury. Dennis Schroeder's been out, Anthony Davis has been out. So it just feels like this Laker team is going to wear down, and especially after, once again, just like Miami, they're running through the bubble. I just feel like they're going to run out of gas, and I do think the Lakers can take Phoenix to 7 games. But I just think Phoenix, that the roster is just too well built this year. And I think Phoenix, you'll see them get out the first round. And I think it'll start with them getting off to a 2-0 series lead. So I'm not even holding you for game 2. I think Phoenix is going to take these first 2 games at home just because they're going to be taking on a Lakers team that just came off of a pretty tough win against the Warriors to get in with their play get in the Western Conference play-in tournament. So I got Phoenix winning game 1. Winning games 1 and 2 in this series. Atlanta and New York, man. First off, man, New York is kind of like watching the Bulls for me, man, because it's like the 2011 Bulls, like you got Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson, you got you got Tom Thibodeau, they got Julius Randle. Julius Randle is really good, man. He's having an amazing season, obviously, an all-star year. Shout out Trae Young, he too is having an amazing season. But I think the key to this series will be John Collins. I think he's going to really have to produce on the offensive end, probably going up against Julius Randle. And then also have to help out on the defensive end, help with Clint Capella in the paint, going up against a team in New York that's really good at creating shots for Julius Randle inside. And also they have guards like Emmanuel Quickley and the aforementioned Derrick Rose, 6th Man of the Year contender, who can get to the rim just as well. So I think John Collins is going to be key in this series. And I really think this is an interesting matchup because to me this is a clash of styles, even though Nate McMillan is coaching Atlanta, so you might see Atlanta start playing a little bit slower. But I just feel like Atlanta, in terms of talent, when you look at Trae Young, John Collins, Kevin Huerter, like those guys play a fast style of basketball. When you get them into the open floor, they're very fun to watch. And they're going up against a New York team that likes to try to shut you down. So I think this series is going 7 games just because of the fact that it's a clash of styles. And I think game 1, I think we're going to see Atlanta take game 1. I think Atlanta here in game 1. I think it'll come down to Trae Young, what he can do for them scoring wise, and can New York match that with R.J. Barrett, Derrick Rose, and also Emmanuel Quickley. So I just think Trae Young in Atlanta, I think we might see one of those Damian Lillard type performances like we saw against Denver. So I think Trae Young he's gonna have one of those against New York, and I give Atlanta game 1 on the road. But I do think this series is going 7 games. And lastly, in the 1-8, Memphis versus Utah. Memphis got in via the play-in game. 2 good wins, man. They beat San Antonio and then the overtime win against Golden State to get into the playoffs. However, they're going up against the Utah Jazz, the best team in the league in terms of record. And Utah, 31-5 at home this season. It's hard to go against that. I got this series going 6 games, but I'm going to give Utah both games 1 and 2 at home. 31-5 at home, even though Donovan Mitchell has been out with the ankle. I think Quinn Snyder, that's a credit to his coaching that this Utah team has been able to maintain pretty much the top seed all season, because I remember there's a point they were like 31-9 and they were the last team to lose 10 games in the league. So I just think that's a really good credit to Quinn Snyder and the Utah Jazz this season. I think they're going to win these first 2 games, but I think they're going to be in for a series. I think it'll shift when it goes to Memphis. I think you're going to see pretty much a back and forth series between Utah and Memphis. I know Donovan Mitchell he is dealing with the ankle, but I expect him to come out for Utah and I expect him to play pretty well. And even if he struggles, I think Utah with the home court advantage and their ability to use the high pick and roll with Mike Conley and he space the floor with their shooting. And also this year they do have Bojan Bogdanovic in the playoffs. Remember, he missed the bubble last year. So I think Utah, I give them 6 games with Memphis, but I think they take these first 2 at home, and I got them winning games 1 and 2 before this series shifts to Memphis. So there you have it, a quick NBA. So there you have it, a quick NBA 2021 NBA playoff check-in. As you can tell, I had a long day yesterday, man. I'm stumbling over my words. It was an emotional day in the playoffs, man, and then also, it was hot, man. It was hot here in Chicago, man. So, yeah. So bear with me, man. But this is my 2021 NBA playoff check-in here for the World Class Hoops podcast. Remember, available on Anchor, Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube. And also, you can follow on Twitter at WCHP Media and here on Facebook at World Class Hoops Podcast. Also, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at KingRouse21, KINGROUS20. RSUE oh my goodness, KINGROUSE21. I need to get some rest, man. So yeah, day 2 of the NBA playoffs is coming up later. I'm gonna try to stay up through most of it. I'm gonna probably sleep through that Sixers game and watch that later. But yeah, enjoy the playoffs, man. Positive energy to you all, man, and definitely, like I said, man, enjoy the 2021 NBA playoffs.